name's Tom Parsons. You might have seen me in some previous videos and had been wondering who is this guy, so I thought I would introduce myself. I'm an artist from Melbourne, Australia, and I'm also part of the Montmartre creative team. I've been interested in art since a very young age, and I'm really looking forward to bringing you some exciting new art projects that I hope will inspire you. In today's lesson, I'm going to be painting this portrait using acrylic paint, oil paint, and gold leaf. So let's get started. The strategy for this painting is to start with an acrylic underpainting. I'm using a selection of Montmartre satin, dimension, and fluoro acrylic paints. To begin, it helps to lay down a ground colour. This knocks back the otherwise confronting white of the canvas. I've decided on a mid-tone neutral grey created with titanium white and a touch of Payne's grey. Apply that with a 75mm abstract expression brush. A mid-grey like this will help later when it comes to judging the skin tones. It will also help to unify the finished painting, as I plan to let some of the base layers show through. Once that's dry, I first draw the face and figure with a HB pencil and follow that with an outline of lamp black. The style of this portrait will have areas which are impressionistic and other areas where the detail is far more realistic. And while a black outline like this may not be a traditional approach, it can find its place in more experimental styles like this. The next step involves some fluorescent pink acrylic and also titanium white. I'm going to apply some big, bold, gestural marks to the canvas with a wide brush. These marks are intended to give the final painting a really dynamic impact. It's also a very helpful way to loosen up before you begin the portrait. Using the acrylic paints laid out earlier, begin to block in the various dark, mid and light tones on the face. I'm using a number 24 oil Taklon bright brush. Using a wide, stiff bristled brush like this forces you to make bigger marks when laying down the basic tones. Remember, this is just the first layer of paint, and a portrait can take many layers to get the subject looking right. Avoid looking at the detail in the face at this stage. A good tip is to squint your eyes to blur your perception of the subject or reference image and force yourself to see the tones as blocks. Acrylic paint is great for underpainting as it dries quickly, so you can get started on the next layers sooner. The following layers we're going to move on to oil paint. Oil paint is much slower drying and will allow more time to blend areas of the portrait. This selection of colours allows you to mix a wide range of skin tones for this painting. You'll find the outline for this portrait and all the materials used in the lesson PDF on our website or in the information below. With a large Taklon brush and some thickened linseed oil, we can start to mix our key skin tones. The linseed oil will help to lend more flow to the mix. The key mixes include red ochre and brilliant red with a touch of other colours here and there when they're needed, and the highlights involve white and brilliant red. The shadows and eyes are a grey mix of raw umber and ultramarine blue tinted with white. First, apply a glaze to the areas of darker tones. A glaze is a translucent mix of oil paint made by adding some linseed oil. This will help to define some more depth and a sense of shadow. Block in the lips and nose roughly, paying attention to where the light is falling on the face. For this portrait, the light is predominantly on the right-hand side of the face coming from a lower angle. Therefore, the nose actually has some light rolling slightly underneath it. Painting the eyes next, notice how we actually use light grey beneath the upper eyelid, as the eyelid casts a subtle shadow over the whites of the eyes. Working from a reference photograph is ideal when you're learning portraiture, as it can be tricky to have a subject to sit for you for hours at a time. Look for an image or take your own photo. Try to avoid having multiple light sources, as this can confuse things, and aim for some stark contrast between the shadows and the highlights, as this can allow for some great depth. As you get closer to the final layers, reduce the size of your brush steadily until you reach a number 2 or a detailer for those really fine details. Once you feel happy with the portrait, you can add some extra wow factor with gold leaf. I'm applying the leafing size very roughly as I want it to integrate with the brush marks we made earlier in the background. So we've just applied the gold leaf, and I wanted to share with you a little bit of a mistake that I've made, but also show you how even mistakes can become happy accidents in a painting of this style. So basically what's happened is, as I was dusting away the excess gold leaf, some of the flecks have become embedded in the wet oil paint. Really what I should have done is waited a few weeks for the oil paint to fully dry, but I got ahead of myself. And that's okay, because what's happened is some of it's fallen in a really nice way here on the arm, and I'm actually going to leave that as it is. And the other areas where I don't want the gold leaf to be showing, I'll just go back over that and touch it up with paint.